Hey guys, it's Kendra.
And this is Jessica, and you're listening to
Lucid Lab. We're so much more in sync saying Lucid Lab lately.
I know, it's fun.
We're getting it down, guys. Only took us a year.
I love that we stuck with it, though.
Me too.
We decided it on the spot in the first episode, and then we just kept doing it.
Keep with it. Well, we're into spring finally. I thought winter would never end. I'm happy to be in March, but that doesn't mean winter's over for us in Colorado. But I'm looking forward to the longer days. I feel like I'm more active now. I'm not in hibernation mode anymore.
I mean, yes, longer days.
Yeah.
It's always rough when the sun goes down and you're
4:30.
not even done working yet. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been able to get myself out walking more lately, which just makes me feel better overall when I leave my house since, both of us work from home. Mm-hmm. And then when we do the podcast, we're sitting indoors. So
it's a lot of sitting.
Yeah. I'm trying to get out there. Like I said, I don't know, several episodes ago, I'm still on it, still trying to keep the wellness going, and spring will help me do that more. So I'm happy.
I need to walk more. I used to walk every single day.
Yeah.
And now I'm just so busy all the time. And where I live, it's not as accessible to what I used to walk. So, but I will.
Yes.
Because I have to.
It's good for the health.
This last week, my daughter had off of school. It was really nice because I've been more intentional with my time with her. Yeah. And she's always just known mom is super crazy, always working, always touching something. And so I need to start creating this time with her. Mm-hmm. And it was really nice. We had a really good week. We didn't do anything crazy. I did take her bowling.
That's fun.
I surprised her with bowling and laser tag.
Laser tag is so much fun.
Oh my gosh. So she actually, for the very first time, did not do bumpers. And she only put it in the gutters twice, and we played for like 2 hours.
Good for her. She's better than I am.
Yeah, she's good. Although she's a little crazy. She throws it. She almost is getting that spinning technique down.
But not intentionally.
Not intentionally, but it ends up working that way just because of the haphazardly way that she throws it down.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was fun. And then we went and did laser tag, and it was just the two of us. And it was fun. A really big room, and it's supposed to last 30 minutes. And I was so good at it. I was so good at it. I'd never done it before.
Oh, yeah.
And my daughter was getting really frustrated with me.
Because you kept hitting her?
Yeah, I was so good at finding her. And we compared her points at one point, and I was 7,000 and she had 1,500. And she was getting so mad at me. But I wasn't going to go
let her
easy
win
on her.
No, that's no fun.
But she was trying to get away from me at one point, and she ran where she wasn't supposed to. She ran back into the room that holds the vests and everything.
Right.
That's not part of it,
Yeah.
Well, those things that stick out of the wall that hold those vests were right at her eye level.
Oh, no.
Yeah, she ran straight into it. And I'm trying to find her in this maze, and I come around a corner and she's on the ground crying. I'm like, ah! And so she ended up having a little baby black eye.
Thank God it didn't get right into her eyeball.
I know. It was really close. It's literally right below her eye.
Oh, my God.
And I'm like, you're not supposed to be running in here, but that ended it for us, sadly. It was such a fun night, and then got ruined.
Always an injury.
Yeah.
That'll take you down.
And then it was kind of a big week. She started violin lessons. We're doing home lessons, which is interesting, different kind of situation there. And she's a natural with that, I think. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of noise. And then she was trying to do sweet things for me. And these kids, I couldn't get mad at her, but I also was not very happy about these things.
Okay.
I'm in the other room for 2 seconds, and it's in the morning. And I come out, and she's like, look, Mom, I'm making coffee for you.
Oh, no.
And she does know how to do it. But this time, she didn't think it through. She didn't do all the steps. First, she forgot the filter.
Oh, no.
2, she used my mushroom coffee.
Okay.
You're supposed to put 1 spoonful into hot water. She used my mushroom coffee as the coffee inside the coffee pot.
Uh-oh.
So she wasted I don't know, $10.
Yeah.
Right there. And this mushroom coffee, it doesn't brew like that.
Yeah.
So I spent 2 hours cleaning up everything. And so that sucked. And then the next day she comes into the kitchen and grabs something. I'm like, bring that to me because I think it's expired. Sure enough, it's expired. I'm like, just get the regular yogurt. She doesn't like to do that because it's just plain.
Right.
I add the stuff in. I don't want the stuff with all the sugar in it. So she goes to grab that. And then I just hear, oh, I'm sorry. And I walk into the kitchen. Somehow she dropped it,
oh, no.
just taking it out of the fridge. And this is one of those big yogurt containers, you know? and it broke and it was all over my kitchen.
Oh, God.
Every cabinet, all over the floor, underneath the stove, just everywhere.
And that's not something you can like miss. You have to like clean every spot up because it's going to smell because it's dairy.
She keeps trying to do good things, but man, she's clumsy.
Part of having kids. I remember I probably had many stories when my kids were young. They're trying to help and it just adds more stress to your day.
Yeah.
But you can't be mad at them because they're trying to take care of you. I think I was telling you, I remember when my kids did breakfast in bed for me one time. And I came downstairs and it was like a full-on disaster, like everywhere. Like they had used every dish in the fucking kitchen. I don't even know how.
It was like Trading Moms. Have you seen that movie? That old movie, Trading Moms?
Oh, I don't think I have.
Oh, really? Darn. Yeah. People who are listening, if you know that movie, they got rid of the mom and they're like making pancakes or something and it's a disaster.
That was essentially my kitchen. And the pancake mix was still sitting out, you know, with the box and everything because they don't put anything back up.
Nope.
There's still milk sitting out with cap off, like just disaster. So, yeah.
Kids are fun.
Yes, it's a treat to raise kids in many ways.
So today I'm doing an alien story.
Ooh, I like aliens.
We're back to it, but it's a little different than any other alien story I've done. So I'm going to be talking about Elizabeth Klarer.
Okay, I know nothing about her.
Klarer. I think it's Klarer.
Okay.
She has a story about a wild, passionate intergalactic romance with an alien.
So it's Twilight alien style?
Kind of, yeah. He's not your typical alien either.
Is he a tall, dark, brooding
close
guy with dark hair and
no, not the dark, no.
Long coat?
Nope.
I'm like, what does a vampire look like? I can't think.
So you haven't heard this story then?
No, I have not.
Neither have I. And so when I got into it, I was like, well, this isn't really like the alien story I was looking for, but okay.
Does he have...
Gotta tell the story.
Does he have like 5 penises? Because they're going to be some weird tentacles or...
No.
Okay. So it's not like the porn version.
It's a love version.
Okay. So he
just wants to cuddle. This story. No, he doesn't just want to cuddle.
Okay.
It's just different. So I'm going to tell you about Elizabeth and then we're going to go into her story.
Okay.
Because it's just different. It's interesting. And a lot of people have covered this case. But what's interesting about it is I found a lot of men cover this case.
Why?
And I think because of the sex. And I think that they go to like research this and they're like, wow, alien sex. Yes, let's do this. And it's like not that. So it's just one of those stories that people assume like all this crazy stuff's going to happen. And it is still crazy. Like once you hear the story, it's crazy, but it's not this weird alien porn story that I think the men were hoping to get some information on. Yeah.
They want all the details.
Yes, exactly. All the details. Well, I have details, just not those details. Sorry if that's what you're here for then.
I mean, that's usually what our listeners are looking for when they come to Lucid Lab, but we're sorry to disappoint today.
So here's the female version of this story.
Okay.
So Elizabeth was born July 1st, 1910 in Mui River, Natal in South Africa.
Okay.
She was the youngest daughter, born to Samuel Bancroft and Florence Woolett. Her father made quite a name for himself. He was a pioneering veterinary surgeon. He held many important positions until settling as a shorthorn cattle farmer at remote Cunnington Farm called Whiteleaf near Rosetta in Natal Midlands of South Africa in the foothills of the Drakensberg Mountains.
Never heard of those. I hear South Africa is beautiful though.
Oh my gosh. The photos from this place, it's fucking beautiful. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. So her father also bred white Arabian horses, and he loved to play and teach polo, and he taught a lot of the kids polo in the area. And that just comes back later in her life. But that was her childhood. She was playing outside, riding horses, and this landscape is insane.
Sounds like a dream childhood. Horses, like isn't that every little girl's dream?
Seriously. And this is also the land of the Zulu people.
Okay.
Elizabeth had many encounters over her lifetime, and it really is unlike any story I've heard from anyone yet when it comes to aliens. I'm sure that we'll come across more as we do this podcast. There has to be someone who has something similar to her, but I just have never heard it. She compiled all of her experiences into a book called Beyond the Light Barrier.
Okay.
And this is the book I read. She held true to every bit of this until her death in 1994. In her book, she describes the Zulu people's beliefs in the Sky People. They were to return to Earth one day on a lightning bird.
Lightning bird, okay.
A lightning bird is a mythological creature from Zulu and other Nguni cultures. It's also called the Impundulu.
Impundulu.
Elizabeth said it was described to her as a formidable creature with blue and gold scales that glitter in many colors. The Sky People, or the Abalungu, which also translates to white people, were said to be beautiful, taller beings with a light complexion and markedly different features and with hair of gold. Zulu means sky,
okay,
and they refer to themselves as people of the heavens. There are variations depending on specific groups of people or different origin stories, but there is a main theme, and that is that life has a single common ancestor, not from here. Well, from here, but not from here. Like, we start from another race.
Okay.
For the purpose of this episode, we will tell her story and what she knew growing up, having lived with some of the Zulu people who told her these stories in their native tongue, which she understood. But we're going to get right to her story from the book.
Okay.
She spoke with a lot of admiration for her experiences. You know, think of any book. It was very romanticized, the way that she spoke. There was a lot of grandeur that was like hard to follow. So I'm paraphrasing and doing the best I can.
Yeah.
Because this is the only source of information anyone has.
So she's the only one that has any witness to these
Anyone
beings,
that anybody could talk to.
because the others were from the Zulu.
Zulu people that couldn't be tracked down. Her sister who died. There are people involved.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that more after her story, but I have to tell it the way she did because this is her story.
That's what we know. Okay.
So we're going to go through her story and just listen.
Okay, here I am. I'm just going to listen along with you guys.
And her way of writing did have a purpose. It wasn't just to tell her story, but she wanted to convey a message of peace, understanding, love, and environmentalism for a better world. She felt like
Called to write it or something. Okay.
So as we know, every 75 years, Halley's Comet comes into
Around,
view.
Right.
And she was born on one of these years.
Okay.
So she's very proud of that.
Mm-hmm.
She was born a little wild in a good way. She loved the sky, the stars, anything magical. When she was 7, Elizabeth was out with her sister Barbara in their stable yard feeding their Sillyham puppies.
Sillyham?
Sillyham?
Never heard of them.
I haven't either, but they're freaking cute.
Now I got to look them up.
They're like little white terriers.
Okay, those are adorable. I looked it up.
She looked it up.
They look like little stuffed animals.
I love them. I want one.
Yes.
So this was in 1917. It was sunset. It had just rained. Guinea fowl were busy chit-chatting when suddenly they stopped. Everything went silent. At the same time, the girls saw something appear in the sky. An enormous silvery disc came down toward them. She described it as moving with a changing bluish-white brightness out of the clear expanse of sky, a globe of light as clear as a pearl. Elizabeth immediately thought it was a spaceship. The puppies got scared and ran into their kennel. Then they saw something else, a rotating planetoid like a glowing orange-red asteroid high in the atmosphere coming toward them.
That sounds scary.
The disk, or spaceship, changed course and appeared to push the planetoid out of the way with some sort of force field, protecting the girls.
So it saved them.
And then they watched it disappear in a flash of light with a smoke-like trail following behind it. They both ran to their house. Their parents were sitting on the porch and Barbara screamed about what they saw. Their father, not questioning them really, but, you know, being a dad, thinking logically, stepped out to take a look and said, well, maybe it was a meteor.
Yeah.
Elizabeth said, no, it was a ship from somewhere.
Okay, your
and
7-year-old
it protected us from something terrible.
As a parent, if my 7-year-old came running to me, I would dismiss it.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I'd probably be like, yeah, right.
She was certainly a child with a lot of questions and big ideas, and they seemed to entertain her, understand, and even encourage her enthusiasm for the unknown. From a young age, she even believed in telepathy and actively tried to make it happen, but she did not see that ship alone that day. She had her sister with her too.
Right.
But soon after their excited announcement, they needed to eat supper, so everyone just went and ate. And that night, Elizabeth was too wired to sleep. She stared out her open window at the stars, wishing that the ship would come back. When her family moved there, a Zulu man, Ladam, moved with them to manage the farm. The next morning, Elizabeth told him about what she and her sister had seen. He believed her without question. He told her that she was destined to be with them.
Whoa.
And that she belonged to the heaven dwellers, which probably didn't help a little girl's imagination.
No.
But he said that they would come for her one day on the mountaintop when she was a grown woman.
Okay, and now she has nightmares for the rest of her life.
And at that time, there's going to be a mating. A mating. I'm like, it just seems like a really odd thing to tell a child that aliens are going to come and have sex with her at some point when she's an adult. But let's go with it because that's what he told her. And it wasn't just this. He told her many, many stories, and she really loved listening to him.
That guy should probably not have been alone with children telling them these crazy ass stories.
And it's because of her hair, like, I don't know, the way she looked. But through him, she did believe that one day they would come back and she would be joining these aliens.
Okay.
A few months after the first experience she had with her sister, she was outside once again listening to another of Ladam's stories when a large black cloud formed overhead with lightning. It seemed to be moving toward them, heading for the farm. And from that cloud, a tornado formed.
Oh.
The broad funnel of the tornado was swaying and impending doom was setting in. But out of nowhere, that same spaceship she saw before arrived and came over the homestead. It is at this point, she says, that her mother saw it as well from inside the home. The interference of the spaceship above caused the tornado to be lifted above them. So they literally watched the tornado go above them, and she said she saw into the eye of the storm as it moved over them.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. They could no longer hear the roar of the storm. Everything was completely silent. They could only feel the up and down pulses of the funnel. Once it passed the house, they watched it touch back down and demolish a pine tree and shed and continue down the hills. After that, the ship sped away as it did before, and they experienced that event together. Ladam confirmed what he had told her, and that was the lightning bird they talk about, and it would come back for her one day.
And her mom saw it this time.
Yeah.
So
the problem is when she finally comes out with her story in this way,
she's
dead. Old.
Okay.
A lot of people are dead. As far as eyewitnesses, yeah, people saw stuff, but it's her story that is, it's one thing to see an alien spaceship.
Right.
It's a whole other thing to experience what she does.
To mate with aliens.
And that's what we're talking about. So it's after this that not much happened for her, actually.
Okay.
So she had these two experiences as a child. She just rode horses every day and studied music until she was 17, 18 years old. She graduated from St. Anne's Diocesan College and then went overseas in 1927 to Florence, Italy to study art and music.
This girl's living the dream.
She really is. She never stopped thinking about the spaceship, though, and what Ladam had told her. After some time, although she loved music, she felt called to follow a different path. So she switched things up and she moved to England to study meteorology at Cambridge. She completed her 4-year program in 1932 and then moved back to South Africa. Once back, she met a Royal Air Force pilot named Captain Stafford Phillips. She married him that same year. Also that year, Elizabeth and her sisters made a bit of history by forming their own polo team.
Oh.
And drawing a match against another girls' team, and it was the first recorded women's polo match in South Africa.
Oh, good for her.
Why not? Be the first at something.
Exactly.
Cool. She had a daughter with Phillips in 1933. They named her Marilyn. But even with marriage and a child and other things going on, her obsession, her longing for the sky, for the spaceship, did not stop. Her husband was well aware of this and thought it would help to ease her anxiousness by teaching her how to fly a Tiger Moth biplane.
Oh, okay.
One of those single-engine, 2-seater yellow planes.
Yeah.
It's kind of sort of like the Piper Cub. That's what it looks like. It's sort of like the Piper Cub that Barney Hill was trying to convince Betty that she saw that night.
Right.
Remember?
Yeah, I remember that.
It's just the British version, I guess.
I love this. He's like, you like the sky. Let's just go fly a plane.
Exactly.
So I'm guessing they had some money.
Yeah, I think that they were okay.
Yeah, her dad owned horses. So
yeah. Elizabeth loved flying. She felt closer to the ship and could feel it nearby. One day in 1937, while flying with Phillips from Durban to Baragwanath in now a DH Leopard Moth, which is a 3-seater.
They're moving on up.
Yeah. They both witnessed and experienced a spaceship coming up to them.
So he saw it too. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Elizabeth first saw it, as she did when she was 7. She alerted her husband, who was piloting, and when he saw, the ship changed colors to a brassy yellow color. It shifted directions as it approached them and coasted alongside them for a little while before leaving. But before it did, Elizabeth got a closer look than she did before. She knew it was the same ship. This time she could see that it was massive and circular, and coming up from the middle was a dome with 3 portholes on the side that she could see. She couldn't see inside, but beneath there was a hole that was emanating a blue-white light that was alternating with deep violet, and it was rotating.
Okay. The light was rotating?
The hole.
The hole. Okay.
She was elated, and her husband, not as much, but he was stunned and intrigued.
He was like, shit, these guys are coming to steal my girl.
She's talked about it all this time. What is the
obsessed
likelihood
with these
of
men
this?
things.
She doesn't even know this yet. So far it's just the ship. This is what we know.
Okay.
He tried to maneuver away from the ship, but it matched them every step of the way. And then it just flipped over, rose straight up into the air, and vanished again.
Okay.
Once they landed, Phillips made a report of their sighting to the Air Force headquarters in Pretoria. They were later brought in for questioning about their experience, but Elizabeth was not forthcoming about her real feelings about it all and what she knew it was, because to her, she felt deeply connected to the ship and or whoever was inside it.
They're just playing hard to get. They're like coming down, look, here I am. Bye.
Bye.
I'm going to come back. Just stringing her along. Typical gaslighting alien men. They're all the same.
That's it. All over the universe. Well, for her husband, it was just a wild encounter. So she decided at first to say nothing. But of course, this experience just increased her longing and loneliness. She needed something more. A few months after their encounter, she went to England with her husband. He had a new assignment. They went to the de Havilland Experimental Flight Center, where he was tasked with testing out experimental planes to help defend England. While there, Elizabeth was somewhat miserable. Outside, it was constantly cloud covered, and inside, she was always inundated with a blanket of cigarette smoke everywhere.
Yuck. Okay. I can see why that'd be depressing.
Yeah. England was a much different place than the open land and skies that she was used to. And she was conflicted with her husband's profession altogether. He was unbothered in a way, and she feared for him often. She disliked the power humans constantly sought out. And in her words, which, amen, she said, to destroy one's fellow creatures and one's planet is a reflection of mass insanity. Violence and destruction are but a symbol of power for the race of humankind on Earth. Vast masses of people who have barely evolved beyond savage flesh-eating murderers. They are barbarians whose one mission is to destroy. A twisted state of mind exists, spawned by centuries of wrong thinking and living in all social systems set up by all people of Earth.
She's a genius.
She definitely had a mind.
I believe her now. No.
But there were a couple things that she enjoyed while she was there. Other than being with her husband. She loved her husband.
Okay, well, that's good.
For one, he wasn't the only one working, so was she. She worked for the Royal Air Force Intelligence studying aerial anomalies. Her work caught the eye of one person, and a friendship formed. This was Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding. She just called him Chief. He was unlike some of the others there. He was open-minded and a spiritualist. He heard about their encounter and wanted to know more. She told him about it, as well as her experiences as a child. He believed her because her sightings were similar to other extraterrestrial reports he was looking into, including what were called Foo Fighters.
I've heard of the Foo Fighters.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I mean, other than the band.
I know, that me too, but
yeah.
I wasn't really sure what it was. Yeah. It's a term that was used back then for UFOs, balls of lights, or other mysterious aerial phenomena that pilots were seeing in the sky.
Yeah.
He was just as interested in it all as she was. He believed that Earth was under close surveillance by an alien but highly advanced civilization from outer space, and wanted her to focus more of her work on that and report back to him with absolutely everything, no matter how fantastic. She agreed, but she felt a lot of pressure from that because she wanted to find the ship.
Yes.
She wanted to find something to prove to the world, hey, you idiots, we're not alone.
Yes.
Stop all your
fighting.
Fucked up shit.
Yes.
She couldn't understand or couldn't figure out how to lift the veil for others. If only they would realize and comprehend that our connection to the cosmos, our obsession with war, and this was during the Nazi time.
Yeah, a lot was going down.
Was so terrible and pointless. Tiny humans trying to fight each other for power over the planet when there was so much more beyond that.
Amen, sister.
Elizabeth and her husband spent 6 years in England before transferring back to South Africa in 1943. She was overjoyed to be going back there.
Yeah.
But before they left, the chief told her to not stop and to find the ship. He believed that doing so actually meant the salvation of the planet and the people on it. So Mr. Chief was just as up there with her.
He was feeding the crazy, if you want to call it that.
Or he knew.
Or he had seen something himself. You know? Yeah.
And he probably believed in it way more because he's studying it.
Yes. And he had
It's
heard
not just one
stories.
experience. It's all the stories.
And most of our UFO stories today still come from pilots.
I know.
So it makes sense.
It makes
They're
sense.
up in the sky.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're the ones up there. But it was her goal. And since she was a child, she was preparing for it. Not just to find the ship or ships, but to communicate with them. She knew that such travel would mean that the beings were thousands of years ahead of humans. She knew that it would probably require telepathy. So as I mentioned before, she was constantly practicing. She would practice with plants, trees, with animals, even machines. And she truly felt that she was increasing her abilities and came to believe or know that there was a man that she knew in that spaceship.
Okay.
Going back to South Africa, she felt that she was closer to him.
Mm-hmm.
They were stationed in Cape Town, not quite home, but closer. One day while at work, she received a call that there was a fire that broke out in one of the hangars. They were ordered to evacuate, but she only thought of her husband and his safety. Instead, she ran to the hangar. She knew that her husband would be trying to save a plane.
Okay.
And he was.
She's like, I know my man.
As she ran up to try and help him push one of them away, a patrol tank exploded. And they were both flung to the ground. Her next memory was waking up in a hospital, but she was in and out of it. And when she was out of it, she instead woke up in a field of grass on a hill overlooking a very deep sea with mountains and trees all around her. And then she saw a ship coming toward her. She knew she was not on Earth, but on an exotic and mysterious land. But then she woke up in the hospital again.
Okay.
She had a vision of some kind. I couldn't find how long she was in the hospital, but it was a long recovery.
Maybe they just gave her really good drugs. That was the whole
Maybe
visualization.
I mean, my dreams are crazy.
Yeah.
If they're true, then whoa. When she was released from Groote Schuur Hospital in Cape Town, she went back home to the foothills of the Drakensberg Mountains. And without any known reason, her marriage to Phillips did not survive.
Okay.
They divorced. My guess would be that she became even more focused on or obsessing over the spaceship after her vision and brushed with death.
Maybe.
And there just really wasn't much of a relationship after this.
He's like, you're busy pining away for skymen or sky creatures, and I want to stay in Cape Town. You want to move back home. It happens.
You know,
the typical divorce story.
But we can only guess because back then, divorce wasn't easy to come by.
No, it was rare.
They divorced some point between 1944 and 1945, and up until 1979 in South Africa, you could only divorce if there was adultery or malicious desertion or abandonment. So they had to claim one of these two things happened just in order to be granted a divorce.
Well, there could have been some adultery that
Maybe it was
she just
both.
didn't want to discuss it.
That didn't seem like the end of the world for Elizabeth, even though they seemed like they were a good match, really.
Mm-hmm.
So I was surprised about that. She remarried not long after that in 1946, so she didn't wait too long. This time, she married Paul Klarer, where she gets her name that she has for the rest of her life, which is interesting because he's not the last.
Oh, wow.
In 1949, her son David was born. Again, for unknown reasons, she and Paul divorced after his birth, but she kept his name.
Okay.
But I'm guessing for the same reasons. Elizabeth just was too
out there.
Her head was in the clouds.
Yeah.
Not even out there. That's where she was. That was her focus. And she felt like almost dying was a redirection to put her back on the path so that she could be with them someday. At this time, Elizabeth's sister, May, had taken over the family farm. She often visited the farm and would go to the mountains in hopes that the ship would come, but her trips were unsuccessful for a while. She was living in Johannesburg, but in 1954, she received a call from May that the Zulu people reported having seen the lightning bird. She rushed back to the farm with her kids and her dogs in tow. When she got there, she gave May the kids and the dogs and walked 3 miles to Cathkin Peak.
Wow.
Which is now called Flying Saucer Hill.
I wonder how I got that name.
When she got there, she stood and waited. She could sense that it was waiting for her in the clouds.
It was waiting for her to make the mating call, like a bird. Calm down. I'm single.
I got rid of 2 of them already. This was on December 27th, 1954.
Okay.
I'm not sure how long she waited, but she saw lights in the clouds, and then the ship came down from the bottom and was heading toward her. It stopped short of her to the south, hovering above. It slowly lowered to just a couple of meters off the ground in front of her. This time she could see him through the portholes. He was standing there visible with his arms crossed. They both smiled at each other. Although she felt faint, she wasn't scared. She instantly fell in love. Even though she says she knew she loved him before ever seeing him. She didn't want to look away from him, but she made herself so that she could see the ship in more detail. There was a pulsating hum coming from the ship that popped her ears. The ship was bright and had a smooth glass-like surface. The hull below the ship was spinning. The ship was lowering more. She wanted to walk toward it, but it grew brighter and was hurting her eyes. And the heat coming from the ship was almost suffocating, making it difficult for her to move. The vibrations had also caused her to have an instant headache that was increasing by the second, and she knew that she wouldn't be able to stand there much longer.
Okay.
Either he noticed this and decided to leave, or he was just done teasing her for a second. I think we might have some opinions. I think we already do about alien men already. But the ship suddenly started to rise, and boom, in a flash, it was gone. It caused her hat to fly off, and in the moment, she sat down hard into the grass.
Okay.
She just sat there for a really long time thinking about it all. She did claim prior to this having been able to communicate with him telepathically.
Okay.
Even at one point, teleporting out of her body to his ship and learning from him. But after finally seeing him in this way, she felt completely connected to him and that he was controlling her now.
That doesn't sound like a good boyfriend.
Here's the thing. Throughout this book, she's very happy about his control.
Is this like a 50 Shades of Grey alien style?
I don't know. It's just the way she talks about it. To her, this was in a good way, his control.
Okay.
She knew he would be back, though, and that they would finally physically meet. But months went by and the ship didn't come back. That's another thing. It's just always such a wait.
Yeah, he likes to come back and come on, guy, get it together. She's aging down here.
She is aging down here. So she went back to Johannesburg.
And got married again. No, I'm kidding. Maybe she did.
I said she wasn't done yet. But not yet. Not yet. She received yet another call from her sister 18 months later that the Zulus saw the lightning bird again. So again, she rushed back to the farm. It wasn't until the next morning she woke up and she just knew that he was there. She rushed to put on her clothes and set off to the hill again. It was a bit of a harder trek this time with the wind, but when she got to the top and walked across, she didn't have to wait this time because down on the other side of the hill, the ship was on the ground and he was standing next to the ship.
Wow.
The moment she saw this, she did not hesitate. She ran down to him. He immediately picked her up by the waist, sat her down on the hull, but was still holding her. He was much taller, and this way they were face to face, and they both laughed. And for the first time, he spoke to her in English. He said, "Not afraid this time?" He was about 6 feet tall. He had slanting gray eyes with long, golden, slicked back hair that ended at the back of his neck, and it was white at the temples. He had aquiline features with high cheekbones, a high forehead, light but golden skin. He had some wrinkles by his eyes and on his cheeks, like down in the middle of his cheeks. He was an older man.
Okay.
She said well past middle age.
And how old is she at this point, I wonder?
She was middle-aged.
So they were
compatible.
Yeah.
They were compatible. He was a thin man, but strong, and he was wearing a silver, light, but fitting one-piece suit with only his head and hands showing. She responded, "I have known your face within my heart all my life." He took her onto the ship, and there she saw another man, the pilot, and he smiled at her, and she said that he was handsome too. Mm-hmm. Do you have something to say? Because I'm about to go into a lot.
This just sounds like a cheesy romance
it is
novel at the moment. So,
well, that's what it is. Are you mad about it? Because that's all I got for you, Kendra.
No, I like this. Like, tell me more, but it's hard to believe right now.
Well, this was her love story. And that's why I said it's not like other alien stories you've heard.
Yeah, all of us have had a dream probably not all of us. I don't think I've ever had a dream about an alien taking me away, but like it sounds like what we read today in supernatural books, but I know now this is 1956. That stuff wasn't around.
No, yeah. That's the thing is like a lot of this, could she have thought it up? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But this is something that one woman stuck to her entire life and no one ever fucking called her crazy.
Right.
So just that's what I'm saying. We're going to listen to her story.
Let's hear more.
And then
give me all the juicy details.
If anything, just think of this as a summary of her book so you don't have to read it.
It's a fanfic. This is a fanfic.
This is a fanfic episode. All right. So she's inside the ship now. Mm-hmm. The technology was unlike anything that she had seen or even imagined. When something closed, the door, the porthole covers, the seams disappeared into the walls.
Not similar to other alien stories.
Yes, but this is before that. You remember, she said it first.
True.
Kind of crap here.
But she wrote it when?
This is just when this book came out. She talked about this stuff before to the book.
Writing the book.
It's just the book is her compilation of it all.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm pretty sure she's the first one who has sex with one, though.
Yeah, I haven't heard any alien sex.
Other people have come out after that, but I think she might be the first.
Some of them have probably had sex with them and don't know it because they were knocked out.
Yes, this was not her. Everything she does is
romantic,
is consented.
Yes.
Very different.
No anal probes.
She might have preferred being probed even more. I don't know.
She went in willingly and was
very willingly.
Probe me. And all the ones in the future were like, that girl let us do it. Let's try it on all these guys now.
And then it didn't work. And they're like, nope, take them at night.
Time to anesthesia.
Erase their memory.
She was the one that started it for everyone else. They all thought they would be open to this.
Yep. Okay, we're going to explain it all. Let's not tear her apart.
I just think it's funny.
I actually love Elizabeth.
Okay.
Anyway, the walls were shiny, almost like light was coming from them, but not. The floors were carpeted, red.
Okay.
They were sitting on a bench. He held her hands and introduced himself officially. He said, now, I'm pretty sure this is how you pronounce it, but it may be the other way, but I'm going to say it one way the whole time. He said, my name is Akon.
Akon.
But it's spelled like Akon.
Okay.
A-K-O-N.
Like the singer Akon?
Yeah, exactly. He said, my name is Akon. I am a scientist, and my research takes me to many planets beyond our home system. Sharon, who greeted you as we came in, is my pilot, and he is also a scientist. Our home system is beyond, far beyond, this small star with its family of planets. We come from a triple star system. She was listening but admiring his features. At that moment, she became nervous and self-conscious.
And Akon was setting it up that he was going to cheat on her because he's like, I'm traveling everywhere, so don't hold me down to this.
Well, he read her mind and said, I would not have you otherwise. I love you as you are.
Aww.
And you are one of us now. She didn't know what to say. She tried to think of something, and he read her mind again, saying, my beloved, there is no need for you to say anything. I know everything. I have observed you before. It is a knowledge and understanding that we share, and you now belong to me.
Controlling much?
Some of the things she says, he says. I'm like,
Red flag. Kind of a red flag from this intergalactic romance man.
He continues saying, it was only necessary for me to wait until you had grown up in this knowledge.
Okay, now you're creepy, dude. You've been watching her. Well, at least he waited until she grew up.
Had grown up in this knowledge and understanding.
Oh, okay.
To be one of us, you must think as we do. I observed you first when you were a child, with your sisters in the garden of your home in the valley adjoining the hill. At other times, I have watched you growing up, flying through the skies of earth, looking for me. She finally responded to him that it had been a lifetime for her, waiting. He told her that her face was still filled with wonder and awe, and then he kissed her.
Aww.
So, if you haven't guessed, he's very human looking. I mean, he has
blonde hair,
different features that make him not look like us, but it's understandable that a human woman would be like, dude, I like you. You're attractive.
Most aliens don't have hair.
Yeah, and he had hair.
Yeah.
So this isn't little green men alien stuff. This isn't the Greys. This is
tall, handsome,
reptilians.
Blonde man.
Yes. It was quite literally electric for her. And then he said, we rarely mate with Earth women. When we do, we keep the offspring to strengthen our race and infuse new blood. Rather than questioning the matter of factness about that, she was very excited. But she snapped out of it when something happened on the ship. I don't know what it was, but he got up and pushed a button and the walls became a panoramic view of the Earth below and around them. She watched as they rose up and up until Earth became a sphere and the walls became the stars. It wasn't until then that she started to worry. She thought about her children and wondered if she would be able to return to them.
Yeah.
Was this it? She wanted this, and now she's gone.
She belongs to him.
Again, reading her mind, he told her not to worry. They were just going to visit the mothership for a short while and that he would take her back. On their way, she noticed more details about the ship. The control panel was just some simple push buttons, nothing crazy. Above her in the dome of the ship was a magical map pinpointing their place in the Milky Way. She finally spoke up and started asking questions about space travel and how their ships were made and their abilities. He explained that their ships were made in space, converting pure energy into physical substance. He went into a lot of other spacey details about how it all becomes a ship, the purpose, how it all works. Like, there are pages and pages of this in the book. I'm not going to be doing that.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Because I only understood a few things.
Yeah.
If you want the details, which there's a decent amount of, you can go read her book. But what I did sum up is that it's all about light.
Okay.
Space is light. The different lights you see emitting from the ship is actually the speed of the ship, because the colors, how we perceive them, is the speed. So for us humans looking at a spaceship. So if we see a spaceship with all these different colors, it's the speed.
Okay.
Is essentially what he was saying, because she asked about, it had different colors when she'd seen it.
Seen it different times, yeah.
The ship is a combination of electric, magnetic, tempic, and resonating cosmic forces. The key to all life in the universe lies in the harmonic interaction of light, and within that you can have the conversations about time, dimensions, and gravity, but it is all just a manipulation of light.
Okay, I get that, kind of.
And sorry, folks, I can't get more detailed than that.
Yeah, I don't know what more is probably beyond our comprehension in a way.
It is. And she's very smart. You need to remember this lady,
right? She
was smart too. So writing this book, I'm like, okay, I can't go get a degree to understand what you're saying.
I am not a astrophysicist.
But she was in awe listening to him and trying to understand everything, and followed him well, but laughed when she understood why he waited so long to actually contact her. Although he appeared to be in his 60s, he was well over 3,000 years old, and he had never mated with anyone. When Elizabeth was born, he felt her pull. When he found her, he knew he would protect her in any way that he could, but would wait until she was old enough. And not just of age, she needed to be able to grasp everything that he was saying. He explained that if he had taken her sooner, then they wouldn't have been in harmony, and that harmony is the key to manipulating cosmic energy, which is the source of all existence and matter and thoughts. And that's why humans suck, essentially, because... Or at least that's the gist I got of him trying to explain this, because we're too busy killing each other and land grabbing. Yeah. We will never be able to achieve Akon civilization's abilities because it requires universal harmony. We would need to elevate. We'd need to reach that consciousness that you and I talk about sometimes. Yes. And that is where we would all need to be to achieve anything like this. We would need to ascend, be one with nature. Because in order to do stuff like this, you would need to be able to duplicate nature. Our thoughts are the key. Love is key. And telepathy is the result of collective harmony.
Interesting.
But just as our thoughts can create harmony for the planet, if you've followed any of that, in the wrong hands, thoughts can be put into us, used against us for destruction. He explained that to her, and that is why they could never share the secret of light with any humans on Earth.
Because we'd find a way to destroy.
We'd find a way to use it for bad shit, essentially. Mm-hmm. After all this talk, they were almost to the mothership. So more details about how things work with docking, his job, tons of stuff. At one point asking if she was going to be scientifically examined. He pretty much told her to shut up and picked her up and walked out of one of the walls into the ship.
And there they were.
They walked in, he put her down, and they were surrounded by others, men, women, and children. They were all just staring her up and down. Her features had similarities to theirs. And they said she was a descendant from their original stock that was once left behind on Earth.
Okay, that's interesting.
The women wore silky, flowy, low-cut, translucent, bright-colored dresses. You could see their naked bodies.
Okay.
Men wore single form-fitting garments that ended at the knee, and children wore similar garments, and on the ship, no one was wearing shoes. After some chit-chatting with everyone, he picked her up again. Apparently, he likes to hold her like a baby. That's the one thing throughout this entire book. He just is always picking her up. Like she can't walk anywhere herself.
That would annoy me. That would be a red flag as well.
But he took her to another part of the ship where she met his brother, Haben, or Haben. It's Haben.
Okay.
In that room, there was grass, flowers, plants, and trees. She was getting tired, so they said that she should eat. They had salads, vegetables, fruits, fruit juice, and nuts. He told her that everything that they need to survive, all the nutrition that they needed, came from this food.
Okay.
They did not eat animals. Haben essentially looked at her and said, "Don't eat like you do anymore."
I mean, we all need to hear that.
I know. She questioned him, wondering why he knew so much about humans, because he said more. He got up and put something into the wall, and the wall became a huge, highly detailed camera, essentially. And it's what they called an electric mirage, where they could zoom into everything and everyone on Earth.
Wow.
They showed her people she knew talking as if they were right there. She asked more questions of him, and he explained that Akon, as well as he and others, had observed her, and they chose her to be the one that mates with him. Once again, explaining their need of new blood to strengthen their race. She was now one of them, but why her? So Akon and his people, their ancestors originated on Venus.
Okay, planet of love.
It used to be lush and full of life, but after a very long time, the sun's radiation was leading their civilization to extinction. It was killing all the flora and fauna. They were highly advanced at that time and did find a way off Venus. They landed on Earth and Mars. Both were capable of sustaining life for them, but still the sun's radiation messed with their minds. So groups on both planets started to cave to a destructive behavior. Those that were not affected after another long period of time and after some more advances in technology were able to leave, and they settled in the Alpha Centauri system, about 4.37 light years from our solar system.
Okay.
Those left on Mars eventually just destroyed themselves. So that's why there's nothing left there.
Right.
Elizabeth somehow was born with what they called race memory. This is what allowed her to have this connection with them and why he was aware of her when she was born. She asked about their planet and if what she had imagined that day when she had a vision in the hospital is what it was like. And he said yes.
So those were supposedly memories, just
a race memory
in her. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Suddenly, all the fun and games were over and it was almost time to take her back. Akon had some business that he had to attend to. Stopping at the mothership was twofold for him, to show her things, but also to replenish his ship. He was going to explore a supernova, something far too dangerous for her, so she needed to go home. She understood the seriousness of it, but was sad and worried. He confessed his love to her and destiny with her again, saying, "Beloved one, I shall be with you always, my love, my life, my chosen mate. I will return to possess you and sow the seed of my life with your delicate body. The mark of my love will remain within your soul forever."
I don't know what to say about that.
I know. He kind of
getting a little cheesy there, dude. He's got a way with words.
He does have a way with words.
That you belong to me and I will possess you.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
You know, back then,
that was the thing.
That's a whole other level. You know, this is an alien.
True. And he's saying, I'm going to sow my seed instead of I'm going to make sweet love to you.
There's a purpose to it. Before leaving, Elizabeth had a conversation with a man named Meton. They talked more about his people's history and technology. He explained that it would take an astronaut from Earth 4 years to get to Alpha Centauri. That is, if they were able to travel in the speed of light, as Earth scientists understand it. But their ships can make trips instantly. He also explained the nature of Akon's studies in more depth and that he essentially studies stars. Earth is not out of harm's way and will eventually suffer the same devastating effects that Venus did with the sun's solar expansion. That is, if we don't kill the planet first, or Akon's people can't figure out how to stabilize it, because that's what they do. But shifting to less terrifying news, he told her about their system. Alpha Centauri consisted of 7 planets, all of which were inhabited by their people. All planets orbited around Proxima Centauri, one of the 3 stars in the system. He used the electric mirage to show her one of the planet's surface. It was completely unlike Earth. No concrete buildings or evidence of machine technology all over the place. No construction, trains, or vehicles. There were no roads, no highways. She saw white horses galloping freely. Homes in the countryside were white and circular, nestled into the land and surrounded by trees and flowers. City homes were also circular, but none taller than 3 stories. The tops were flat where ships could land, and some of the buildings were massive with large pillars and steps that almost looked like circular pyramids.
Okay.
All of it was amazing to see, but it was time for her to go, so he took her back. They landed, he kissed her, and said that he would be back for her soon. And just like that,
poof, he's gone.
Bye-bye. Turning around, she realized that some of the Zulus saw this. It was nighttime as she made her walk back to the farm. She woke the next morning wondering if it was all a dream.
Yeah.
But the reality quickly came to her that the dream for her was life on Earth. She knew way too much now, but she couldn't wait to tell her sister. Later that day, she took her sister to where the ship had landed, and the grass was flat in that area. And even years later, I believe it was in a documentary. I didn't watch the whole documentary, I'm going to be honest, because a lot of it's in this book, but in a documentary, they went back to that same area, and there's like weird little flowers that grow there now that don't grow in any other area. So It's very interesting. Some Zulu people were there that day as well, some chanting after what some of them had witnessed the night before. May made a mention along the lines of, if only someone was here to catch it on film.
Right. That would have been nice.
Yeah. So they headed back to the farm. May asked her when Akon would be back, and Elizabeth responded, it could be at any time, but that she had to wait again. Now, the chief of the Royal Air Force hadn't forgotten about Elizabeth. He requested an update from her, and she wrote him of her experience. And this excited him a lot and made a trip to South Africa to see her. When he got there, they spent a lot of time at Flying Saucer Hill. He wanted to experience it too, but there was a South African Air Force plane circling above them, so Akon didn't show. And she knew he wouldn't have been back so soon. With the Zulus aware of what happened as well, too many people were drawn to the area for quite a while, and she knew he wouldn't come with the attention it was receiving.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Eventually, the chief left, and after some time, Elizabeth made the decision to go back to Johannesburg. She was so connected with Akon now, she felt that she would be able to sense when he was coming back and didn't need to stay at the farm. But it wasn't just the people near her farm that were aware of her experience. Word traveled. When she arrived in Johannesburg, she was approached by many flying saucer enthusiasts asking her about her experience. They all wanted to know absolutely everything, but Elizabeth was keeping the details to herself. Soon their interests turned to threats when she wouldn't divulge what she knew, specifically about the ship itself and how it worked.
Okay.
Life for her and her children grew increasingly dangerous. She received threatening calls and letters, even the threat of abduction.
What? Like, why?
Because she's not giving details.
They're like, tell us. We will torture it out of you.
She requested protection from the authorities. At one point, ex-policemen guarded her home. Akon could sense the danger, or at least Elizabeth's concerns, and he appeared over Johannesburg despite the risk. The Air Force scrambled to meet the ship, but due to altitude, couldn't reach it. Elizabeth knew he was there to protect her. She said thousands of people witnessed this. Fighter jets were flying about, and some were in battle formation. Out of nowhere, another ship appeared, and both hovered high up for some time before disappearing. So there is evidence actually back in this time of a commotion, of people seeing things. I don't know if thousands of people witnessed it and something going on that day with the Air Force.
Okay.
So who knows?
Take with that what you will. So
yeah, exactly.
Probably 1960 by now.
No, this is...
We're still in the 50s.
Yeah, we're still in the 50s.
Okay.
But with this, she said she knew it was time to be with Akon. She rushed to leave to the farm. At the time, Marilyn, her daughter, was studying for her medical degree at university, but David was still young. He was 9 and in day school, so she told him to pack. This was now April 1958. On their way, there was a terrible storm. There was no way that she was going to see Akon that day. But the next day, she was looking out the window and saw the ship coming through the atmosphere. She yelled to her sister that he was there. She left David with May and made her way to the hill. She got there and waited only a few short minutes before he landed and stepped out. They embraced, and immediately he picked her up
like a baby
and carried her inside. He love-bombed her with words, but before they could do anything else, an Air Force helicopter interrupted them.
Oh.
For the first time, Akon seemed annoyed. He got up and pushed a button, initiating some kind of field that made his ship
Disappear.
Invisible. That wouldn't stop them from coming close, so he said he needed to take her back already. He landed the ship near the home and carried Elizabeth to the doorstep. I swear, carried. Constantly carrying her.
She likes to be carried.
Or maybe he's like, I've only been in love once in 3,000 years. I'm carrying you everywhere.
She's like, I can walk. I have 2 legs.
It's faster this way.
Yeah, maybe. She was a slow walker.
May opened the door eager to see what was going on and saw Akon. He kissed her on both cheeks and told May not to be afraid and told Elizabeth the heights of Cathkin, and then he left, meaning that's where they needed to meet next.
Okay.
They went inside, but just as soon as they did, they heard a huge noise outside and ran to look, and it was the helicopter that had just landed where Akon had just been. They came to the door, and they didn't know what to do, so they offered to give them some tea, and the men started asking questions. These were military men. They had heard that she obviously has some kind of connection, and they have a way to trace him when he's in our atmosphere, and he was just there. She said she did not want to answer any questions at that time because she was really tired and you need to leave.
She's like, I'm not telling you anything about my alien lover. It is off limits. We are keeping that for ourselves.
Well, she said that she would tell them in a couple days. So
okay,
they left. The next morning, Elizabeth went back to the hill. Not sure why she did this, but she took her dog with her and waited there sitting on the grass. Akon arrived and took her into the ship. He brought the dog too. And the dog just went about sniffing around the ship. I'm sure that was very interesting.
The dog's like, what is this?
But once again, they weren't alone. He knew that they were being watched, so he took her higher to the Cathkin Plateau. When they got there, he told her that she could change and shower because she was kind of wet from laying in the grass. She's an older woman, but it kind of sounded like sometimes she was just like this kid who rolled around outside and was muddy.
Well, good for her.
Yeah.
Enjoy your life.
So she did. And when she got out of the shower... All right, we're going to talk about the only sex part in this whole thing. So sorry, guys, but it's not porn.
Here comes the good part.
When she got out of the shower, she stood there naked when he came up behind her. He wrapped his arms around her and took off a small ring from one of his fingers and put it on hers. It was made of silver with green enamel, and it had a giant stone in the middle. And he said this was a way for them to telepathically communicate with each other for the rest of her human life.
Okay.
Then after that, once again, this human woman carrying spaceman picked her up, but this time he took her to bed.
Okay.
And they made sweet, sweet time-bending love.
And he turned on the Let's Get It On song and some candles.
There's actually not a lot of details in this part of the book. No saucy details other than, for her it was ecstasy and their bodies became one and stuff like that. But afterwards, Akon had a lot to say about the purpose of consummation.
Oh, that's a buzz killer. You just had really good sex, and then he's like, let me tell you why.
Let's tell you why we did this.
Scientifically.
I won't repeat it here because he had a very long explanation, but the gist of it is that sex isn't just about making a baby. It's not just about just having sex for the purpose of having sex. He said that mating was forever and necessary for the balance of nature, and that harmonious mating and love affects the formation of a unborn child's soul and mind. So essentially, like if you're a really bad person and 2 bad people make a baby, that baby's going to be bad. And because their love was destined and they're of this different timeline, essentially, that their baby inherently is going to be blessed and good for his race.
Is she going to get pregnant by him?
Well, he's just talking about the baby stuff. And yes.
Okay. So she has an alien baby?
Not yet. Not yet. Well, after this, they were hungry. So they went to go eat some salads.
And nuts. Salads, nuts, and fruit.
And they talked a bunch more science stuff before wandering off to go make love again. Because that's what you do, especially on the first time.
It's their honeymoon.
You have sex, eat, have sex, eat, have sex.
Yeah,
eat.
That's what you do the first 2 weeks of any relationship. You don't leave the bedroom. I get it.
Well, the purpose of this for them was to make a child.
Okay.
He told her that, remember?
Mm-hmm.
That he needed new blood. She fell asleep after this, and he woke her up after some time. She got dressed. As much as they wanted to stay there, they couldn't because Akon was being tracked, and he knew it was the darn United States and Russians using their satellites to pinpoint his ship. He said that they have spent millions of dollars trying to capture him and others, and have created spaceship-looking like ships to try and be like them, but the ships can't even leave the atmosphere. So a lot of them have crashed, causing a lot of confusion for humans who think they're seeing aliens, but they're not.
Right.
So he took her back down to the hill, and her and her doggo got off. She asked Akon what will happen when she gives birth to his child, and he responded, "I shall be back to fetch you and claim my son."
Claim him.
"He is one of us, my beloved, my life. He is not of earth." He kissed her and went onto the ship. She picked up the dog and backed up, and he was gone yet again. The next day, Elizabeth knew she was pregnant. She was 49 years old.
Ouch.
She needed to keep it a secret as long as she could. May told her to stay at the farm, so she ended up staying inside or really close to the farm for fear that people would find out. She was bored out of her mind. But one day in the summer of 1958, she was standing out back when she heard him in her mind say, "Back to Cathkin, go to Cathkin, upon the high plateau."
Okay.
Now, she had been there with him before, but he flew her there. To get there was a whole other task.
Okay.
But her understanding was that he wanted her to go into hiding. Like the house wasn't enough right now.
While she was pregnant. Yeah.
So the next day, along with David and a Zulu man, they saddled horses to go to the plateau. It was safer for her there because it couldn't be accessed by road, and it was really difficult for other aircraft to fly up there because it was cloud covered at its peak most of the time. This time she was riding her dear white horse, Celine. Celine was like family to her. She was from the lineage of white horses that her father bred. It's just a mention because Celine was with her for a very long time. It was her dear, dear horse. It would take some time to get there. The first night they had to stay in a hostel at the foot of the plateau. The next day when they reached the plateau, David's horse got spooked and almost kicked him off, but he was able to calm it down. It was Akon. He was there in his ship. He landed. David and the Zulu man took the horses to eat while Elizabeth and Akon spent some time together on the plateau. I don't know. It seemed like he just wanted to see her. Like he couldn't stay long. And he told her that he would be back to see her soon and went off again.
But she went to all that trouble.
Yeah, but she's going there to stay.
Oh, she's staying there. Okay.
Like camp or do something.
She's pregnant. Like,
yeah.
They better have some nicer facilities for her. Don't put her in a tent.
Elizabeth, David, and the groom continued on and stopped to let the horses drink at a stream when suddenly a dark metallic ship appeared. It wasn't Akon. It was someone else. And it landed.
Akon's evil brother.
Yes.
Was it? I don't know.
No.
It's Darth Vader.
They all ducked down out of the way to see who would come out. She knew immediately that it was human made.
Oh, okay.
It did not shine, and it was dull and dark, and you could see the large rivets and seams. And it was propped on tripod legs. The hatch opened, and two men eventually popped out, climbing out and sliding down a ladder on the outside of the ship. Unlike Elizabeth, David, and the groom, Elizabeth's white horse could not hide and was standing right in the middle of the path with its saddle on. So the men could see her, and one of them immediately took out some kind of weapon and aimed it at Celine. Celine wasn't having it, and she turned around and booked it down the path, and at the same exact time, Elizabeth wasn't having it either. She immediately stood up, screaming at the man, "How dare you attempt to kill my horse?" She stepped out from behind where she was hiding and was still yelling at him when he laughed. He knew her. He said, "I did not expect to meet you so soon." She was convinced that they were Russian, but he spoke with an English Oxford accent. But they were, in fact, Russian spies.
Okay.
They had tracked Akon. She refused to tell them anything and that he would never tell them anything. And she chastised them for thinking that they could catch his ship or stop him in any way with their silly little Lego ship. She didn't say that because there weren't Legos back then, but same thing. They said that they weren't there for him. They were there for her.
Okay.
She was pregnant with his baby, and so capturing her would be a good way to get his attention. They went on to say that they would raise her child if that didn't work, because surely he was smarter than humans and would be able to create the same technology eventually. This went on for a while, and to distract them, she offered to have the groom make some tea. They were surprised, but accepted. While sitting there, her son David managed to ride off and get away. She was alone with the groom and knew that she needed to find a way to get away from these men before they did try to forcibly take her. And thankfully, she got her chance when a South African fighter jet flew overhead. The men turned to look. She gave the groom a nod to escape, and they jumped on their horses and hightailed it out of there. What they didn't expect was the Russian spies to fire at them after that.
Uh-oh.
She thought she was too valuable. They used some sort of beam and exploded a boulder. Lasers. They turned on the trail and were able to hide in a cave, and there they stayed for quite some time. She knew the Russians wouldn't be able to stay there forever because this wasn't their country. And the South African Air Force was obviously aware of their presence. Little spaceman ship and all.
Okay.
So they bided their time and came out when she noticed that the sky was changing. They went back up the trail to the plateau and down the other side. Now as quickly as possible, again, back to the hostel where they were the night before. Along the way, they thankfully ran into David. So her kid's okay.
Good.
They stopped at the hostel only to rest for a little bit. There was a massive storm brewing and they needed to get back to the farm. As they traveled, they realized that they would need to find other shelter and ended up in a Zulu hut. They had some food and slept there that night as hail pummeled everything outside. She woke the next morning and felt like she needed to go back to Katkin.
Okay.
Not to the peak, but the foot of it. She knew Akon would show up there. Poor people. It's like
the
constantly
people who are with her.
Yeah, constantly taking her places to meet this
I hope she paid
alien
them well.
man.
She was
I'm
paying
sure she
them
did.
something. Yeah.
Not her son. He's just getting dragged everywhere.
No,
she's too young.
he's like, damn it, Mom. Why you got to do this? Why you got to hook up with some alien dude? And now I'm going to have a little brother or sister that's alien-like.
So they headed there and made camp, waiting for him to show. And he did. He told her that he was proud of her for how she got away from them, and he had promised that she would never be in harm's way, but he couldn't risk coming down there with them there. But for some reason, the threat had passed, and Elizabeth, David, and the groom were now able to spend a few days with Akon there.
Okay.
He told her it was safe to go back to the farm. He would be coming for her very soon to take her to his planet to give birth, but that he had some things to do first. When they got back to the farm, it wasn't as safe as Akon assumed. May's dog, Cookie, was missing.
Uh-oh.
It was a small white dog. I'm assuming it was
one of those terriers.
Mm-hmm. She had people out looking for him, but feared the worst, and so did Elizabeth. Some Zulu people were more superstitious than others, and they discovered that he was taken and ritualistically sacrificed.
Ew.
The sacrifice was twofold. White animals are considered to be familiar spirits of women, and eating part of their liver would aid when mating and to keep evil spirits away. Parts of him were considered to be medicine. Okay. Not all Zulu people do this, just like the few that are left from old traditions. He was also taken because some knew that the sweet dog had actually witnessed the ship, and they thought that by consuming his eyes, it would give them power.
Oh, that's so sad. Poor little pup.
Immediately upon hearing this, though, those close to Elizabeth were concerned for her, because if she was fucking pregnant, she was way more valuable. But she wasn't as worried because Akon was supposed to be back in a few days, and then she'd be gone.
Okay.
And sure enough, a few days later, she knew he was coming and waited, watching the sky to see a sign of his arrival. He told her that this time he would be picking her up close to the farm, so she wouldn't have to travel anywhere crazy again. May knew this was happening and would help watch over David while Elizabeth was gone. He was enrolled at a boarding school close by, and May would check in often to make sure he was okay. This time, Elizabeth left at night, driving her car down the road to a nearby hilltop. Akon arrived and picked her up. Elizabeth was worried about leaving her car, so they took it with them.
On the ship?
Yeah.
Okay.
He thought it would be fun to see how it worked because it was pistons
mechanical
and stuff.
Yeah.
And he could also tell that it needed some adjusting and that he could fix it for her.
Oh, that's nice. Handy guy.
And off they went. It took almost no time at all to reach Alpha Centauri, although they had enough time to change into the typical silky attire and some sandals. The different times that Elizabeth was on his ship, she was taking in similar oxygen found on his planet, so gradually she was adjusting to the atmosphere so that she could breathe normally while there. There was another issue, though, that would only give her so much time on the planet, and this was her heart. It was attuned to Earth's frequencies, which were much lower. Eventually, she would not be able to survive staying on his planet. Akon was able to somehow temporarily adjust her heart rate with an herbal drink or tablet, but it would only last so long. She would experience the same issue going back to Earth as well because her heart would no longer be at that frequency and will have grown higher with the frequency of his planet. So going back, she would also need medical assistance.
Doesn't sound safe.
Like she would never reacclimate to being on Earth. So she was kind of screwed either way.
Yeah.
It's like just making this trip makes her sick for the rest of her life.
Wonderful.
But
they're having a baby.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't on their mind in the moment. So as she's on the ship, she got to see the entire system as they moved closer to Akon's planet, which was called Meton, or Venus number 2.
Number 2.
They entered the atmosphere and she saw the white marble circular buildings. They landed on top of one and it was Akon's home. She has an illustration of what this looked like in her book. I'll post it. The buildings were made out of actual pearl.
Wow.
When they got there, they were welcomed by Akon's family members. Everyone was super happy and healthy, and he had explained to her previously that their ability to live so long was not only because of their harmony with nature, but because they did not have bad thoughts. There was no monetary system. They had evolved past interpersonal conflict, politics, war, personal interests. There were no predators on land or in the waters. They did not kill and consume other creatures. Everyone shared everything, which is why they were so careful about who was allowed to come into their civilization.
Does Akon have some grandsons now that can come like pick us up? That sounds wonderful.
Grandsons. For all we know, Akon's still alive.
That's true. He was 3,000 years old, but now he's looking like he's in his 60s, 70s.
This is like small potato amount of time since this happened to now.
Yeah.
They said that Elizabeth descended from the Venusians and had race memory. She even had features more closely relating to them than other human beings in her family. And you'll see that in some photos, especially if you watch her talk. Like, it's true. She does look a little different. Okay. Not weird or crazy, but to me, there's just something about her.
Okay.
And someone close to her, a Zulu healer, mentioned her ears are different as well, unlike anything he's seen before. And I'll have to get a closer look at her ears, but later in life, he said she's always covering her ears. So if you see photos of her, her hair is always covering her ears. So there's something telling about her ears.
About her ears. Okay.
But she was there now, and he gifted her a pink pearl necklace that was left for her from his mother, who knew that his mate would come from another planet someday. She immediately fell in love with everything. She saw herds of white horses and thought of Selene. She found out that Selene, a white Arabian horse, was actually a descendant of the Venusians' equines.
Okay.
Which makes sense. Some animals are just too beautiful.
Ethereal. Yes.
To come from this place.
This dark, dingy planet.
As the days passed, her and Akon rode the horses, who would come to them by thought. Telepathy was not just for the people. He took her around to see the countryside. She saw all the different animals, birds, cattle, bees, which she describes in detail if you want to go read it.
Okay.
You've had a dream before.
Yeah.
Just picture that. I don't need to explain everything now. After coming back from one of their excursions one day, they sat down with Sharon and his partner. They showed her all of their history in more detail and how everything came to be. They showed her the work they were doing on Venus and Mars so that someday it might be habitable again.
Are they still doing that work? Because we might need it soon.
I think so. It's obviously gradual fixes. It's not something that'd be like, oh yeah, this whole planet works again. Here you go.
Yeah, right.
Because he's a scientist. He's like a weird weather starman dude studying stuff. Over time, they have been able to study and manipulate a planet's well-being. And that's why their planets are permanent homes now. They can control the stability of their sun.
Okay.
The work they do is to alter stars' behavior, including our sun. She was amazed that all the little silly humans fighting over Earth had no idea about the magnitude of the universe and all the working pieces, and the fact that there were other races working to help and try and save our planet, regardless of their destructive nature. She learned a lot, and she needed to go to sleep because she is still human.
Mm-hmm.
Venusians did not get tired. They didn't feel tired because they were naturally so healthy. Their bodies didn't need the same amount of rest.
Yeah, because they're functioning.
To regenerate during sleep.
They're functioning at the maximum.
Once derobed and in bed, they were very comfortable with their nakedness there.
That's cool, I guess.
I'm like,
they're all healthy and in shape.
She's hardly wearing anything anyway. But Akon massaged her body.
Oh, nice.
Up and down and everywhere. And she knew that it was time for her to give birth.
Okay.
So she was ready. She had no contractions, no pain, no labor. It was just time, and the baby came out easily.
Jealous.
I know. He had golden hair, eyes, and skin. Their children grew up quickly. They didn't fuss. And he was very smart in no time.
So the kid just came out walking.
Pretty much sounds like. They
no
spent
diapers.
I'm sure diapers. They were still functioning human beings,
Yeah.
you know? They spent every waking moment with him because Elizabeth only had 4 Earth months that she could be there because of her heart. They did not name him at first, but Elizabeth eventually landed on the name Ailing. A to start the same as Akon, and then it also meant Prince of Royal Blood. And he liked the name. They held a celebration for his naming where people from other planets and solar systems came. Elizabeth was starting to worry about time, but was reassured of the time passed on Earth versus the time on Meton, because it's not the same. On Meton, there's no time.
Okay.
This is one part of the story that a lot of people talk about because I think there's some confusion here about what she's saying here. By the time she leaves, Ailing appears to be around the age of 9. But that doesn't mean that she spent 9 years on Meton.
Right. Because it was only 4 months of Earth time.
Right. So a lot of people are like, that somehow is a direct correlation. Or 4 months on Earth means 9 years in Meton time. It doesn't.
Okay.
It's not what it does because the children also grow to mature age faster. So it's just the whole point in what she's trying to say is we can't comprehend her time there because it's not experienced in the same way.
Right. Which we've heard in other alien stories.
Right. But her worry increased when hearing about someone wanting to take her son to a system that was very, very far away. And this was Cygnus, which was 1,500 light years away compared to Alpha Centauri only being around 4. So very, very far away. And she didn't like that. Her motherly instincts did not want him to go. And she mentioned this because she had a feeling that there was an impending supernova in that constellation. And they were surprised by her saying this, but they didn't question her because they felt like the birth of her son gave her this knowledge because that's just what they are. They have this knowledge. They know when shit's going on kind of thing. And so they set up a group to go check it out. And that meant Akon going because that's his fucking job.
Right. He's scientist man.
And so she knew her time was up and her heart was not handling the additional stress well.
Right.
So they set off to take her back to Earth. Akon told her that once her body died, in soul, she would return back to Meton to be with them. And not just as a spirit, they had technology to put her soul into a replica of her current human body.
That sounds cool.
And she would look as she did then, but would have the longevity of a true Venusian. I'm like, is this what happens?
Is this what happens when we die?
Can we just have this happen?
That sounds amazing.
So her being back on Earth and all of this, it was just temporary. And this did comfort her and she wasn't sad. And with her time left on Earth, she had a job. She needed to do her part to educate humans, to expand their consciousness, and to make them aware of their existence in the energetic universe, their purpose in life, and to help them overcome the current destructive ways of life.
Mm-hmm.
When they arrived and she stepped out of the ship, Elizabeth coughed and choked. The air quality in the mountains in South Africa was much cleaner than in the city, but it was still really bad compared to their air quality. Akon instructed her to breathe slowly and to try and stay in whatever fresh air she could find. He gave her tablets for her heart, and she only needed to take them once a year, but it is something that she had to deal with for the rest of her life.
Okay.
Only then did she start to feel the dread of what it meant for them to part this time. She was afraid she wouldn't survive it, but he reminded her of their telepathic link and that one day when her Earth body expired, Ailing would come down and get her.
Oh, her son.
Her son. He kissed her and they brought her car out of the ship. She got in and drove it out of the way and then got back out. He was already back on the ship and it was departing. She watched it disappear, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't know when she would see him again.
Oh.
And with that, she went back to the farm. Only 4 months had passed on Earth, but when she returned, her sister was not doing well.
Uh-oh.
Her husband either, her sister's husband. She stayed there with David to help, knowing that both of them didn't have much time. And what I didn't mention before, when Akon came to the door and met May, he did mention something to her about, like, you're not well, like, we'll see you soon, too. Like, he made some kind of comment.
Interesting. Okay.
So her sister and her husband, they did pass, and they died a few months apart. Elizabeth wasn't sure what she should do. Although Marilyn was away in London for her medical degree and taking care of herself, David was still young, and she now had health problems she didn't have before.
Okay.
She wasn't able to take care of the farm. It was sold and now in the hands of strangers, and she had no choice but to return to Johannesburg, where work was easier to come by.
Mm-hmm.
But being in Johannesburg meant that she couldn't see Akon, and she wasn't listening. She wasn't in fresh air.
Right.
She was in the city.
Bad girl.
Bad girl.
Naughty, naughty.
She got a job working for a book dealer and found a home. And it was difficult for her. She was lonely and she was unwell in the city, but she didn't know what else to do. There they stayed for 6 years before she had enough funds to get away for a break during one of David's school breaks. David was now a teenager. He was aware of his mother's relationship with Akon.
That's weird.
But he didn't remember him.
Okay.
They went back to the Drakensberg Mountains, and on their way, Elizabeth could sense that Akon was nearby. She stopped the car, and they both got out. After some time, Akon's ship emerged from the clouds. Unlike any time before, this time she decided that she was going to take a few photos of his ship with her box camera. But it wasn't only his ship. Another ship appeared suddenly with his, and she captured that as well.
Okay.
You can see these photos
we
today.
Have these? Yeah.
Of course, there have been many attempts to debunk them, saying it was hubcaps that she threw up in the air and snapped a picture of, or Spinnerino toys. But all these years later, no one has been able to prove that definitively. No one has been able to debunk the photos.
Interesting.
And they are considered to be some of the more convincing photos out there to prove the existence of UFOs. And she's always stood by the authenticity of the photos. But she didn't take them to prove anything to anyone. She took them for herself, mementos to look at, something she could physically see and not just in her mind. She was sad too often, and she thought it would help her.
So she didn't make these well known until maybe she
later.
Wrote the book. Yeah.
Or when she got into the UFO community later, I think, is when she showed more people. Akon did not come down this time. A storm had suddenly started right then and there. When it did, she was away from David and the dogs. She left them in the car because she had run up the hill to try and capture these photos.
Mm-hmm.
Lightning had started and she knew that she was in a bad spot and she had to move. So she jumped off a large boulder and landed on the grass and rolled down the hill.
Ouch.
And just a few moments later, lightning hit that boulder. She got up and ran for cover under another rock ledge as it started to rain and hail. Her heart was not okay. She said she felt death touch her heart, but then was surprised by what came into her mind. It wasn't her longing for Akon, but her thoughts went to a man that she had met a few weeks before.
Okay. Husband number 3?
Yes. He was sent by the chief to check up on Elizabeth. He was an ex-British Army major, and his name was Aubrey Fielding. She would always love Akon and would eventually spend forever with him soon enough, but she couldn't help but think of her affection for Aubrey in that moment. She returned to David and the dog shortly after that, and they drove to the hostel that they had stayed all those years ago at the foot of Cathkin Peak. She had planned to stay there for 3 weeks. That is all the time that she could manage to get away with her earthly responsibilities. Right. Once again, she felt Akon and wondered if he decided to leave because she thought of Aubrey, because
jealousy.
They have mind connections.
Right.
She worried he wouldn't have time to see her either just because she had scheduled a time to go there. But her worries were alleviated when Akon arrived one day, I think a few days later. David stayed at the hostel while she joined Akon for several days on the ship. He set her mind at ease when it came to Aubrey and told her he didn't expect her to live out her human days alone while him and Ailing were exploring the universe. He knew that they would be together completely in due time. He realized that she needed more than what he left her with. He essentially took her away and she experienced the most amazing thing that someone can experience.
Yeah.
And then he just
dumped her back
off.
He's like, and now you're back in the trashy planet that
He left her with no purpose.
Right.
So he told her to share her story with the world. But one morning she woke up outside in the sunlight with just enough time to see Akon's ship disappear into the sky. Which seemed like a really fucked up way to say goodbye. He just picked her up while she was sleeping, put her in the grass, left her.
It's like, and you're good, right?
Maybe she wasn't waking up or something.
He's like, hey, time to go
poking
home.
Her.
Time to go home. And she's
like,
and he's like, whatever. I'll see you forever in a few years or whatever.
Go have a husband for a while.
He's like, I got things to do with our son.
So they went back to Johannesburg. Her few weeks gone had eaten up any extra money she had.
Oh, shit.
They were poor, and she was kept up all night worrying about what would happen to them as she only had another month's worth of money to keep a roof over their head.
Wow, she didn't plan that well.
No, she was starving and she was ill. One day at the bookshop, she passed out. There was a storm outside as well. She was worried about David and how he would get home from school, and the major, Aubrey, helped her get home in a taxi and got David. He brought food and champagne, but his kindness wasn't enough because that same night, Elizabeth experienced a hemorrhage and she had to have surgery the next day.
Wow.
She had to have a hysterectomy, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
She thought that it was the end. Like she thought it was done. Like she's dying. But she woke up in the hospital with Aubrey looking at her. He told her that he would look after them from now on.
Okay.
At the moment, she felt that Akon had part in bringing him into her life to make sure that she was taken care of. Because girl wasn't doing that good.
So. Yeah.
I mean, he could have at least made pretend money for her.
Given her something. Yeah.
Sounds like she was
like she
barely
lost her
surviving.
family farm and now she's working a shit job and
you got this kid, you know.
Right. you got what you wanted from her. Can you make her life a little more comfortable down there? And she has another kid to take care of too.
Yeah, she deserved
a little bit more support.
More support.
She birthed a child for you.
You could have at least like made something for her to stay in, or I don't know.
Yeah.
You'd
give her a house.
That being able to travel the universe and beyond, you would have been able to do something. But no. He's like, I love you forever. Now go be poor and beg on the street.
It'll be great when you die. That kind of sounds like religion, but that's just me.
But after this, she had a new sense of life. With Aubrey's help and care, she felt like she could finally fulfill her mission to educate other humans.
Okay.
And that's the end of her autobiography, Beyond the Light Barrier. So what happened after that? She fully immersed herself in the UFO scene to spread Akon's message of peace and love.
Mm-hmm.
She gave interviews. Many articles came out about her, good and bad. A lot of people calling her crazy and whatnot, of course. That didn't bother her because she knew all of it wouldn't be easily accepted and her story needed to spread far and wide. And that meant that you had to deal with not so great people along the way to find the right people.
We know how that goes. We're building a podcast.
Exactly. We get you. Aubrey supported her completely. They married in 1963.
Okay.
So she did get remarried.
Good. She's not lonely anymore.
No. When Aubrey was questioned about Elizabeth's relationship with Akon, he said he never felt threatened by it and was fully aware of Elizabeth's feelings for him and what she believed would happen after her lifetime on Earth. But specifically, he said, well, my wife has been in love with a spaceman for 20 years. That's all right with me as long as he stays in space where he belongs.
Which he's doing. So
yeah, for the most part. Aubrey helped Elizabeth establish a flying saucer society called Contact International, which held monthly meetings into the 1980s until she got sicker and had to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Although most tell her story as a joke these days, love and sex with an alien being the punchline.
Yeah.
For the most part, the alien community did believe her.
Oh, okay.
In 1975, she attended the 11th International Congress of UFO Research Groups in Wiesbaden, Germany, as the guest of honor, in which she received a standing ovation for her story. Over time, she realized it was better to put her experiences into a book, Beyond the Light Barrier. This was published in 1980 and translated to English in 1981. A 2009 edition was published by her son, David, including an epilogue that he added with his take on things.
Oh, interesting.
And his take on things didn't quite match up to Elizabeth's story.
Okay, what did he say?
But then again, he was a child for most of it.
True.
For instance, he remembers the horse ride to the base of Kathkin at that time, when she was supposed to go hide.
Right.
But doesn't remember a ship, doesn't remember meeting Akon.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't ignore the possibility that such an advanced civilization would have the ability to alter memories or something
Possibly.
like that. But without his own experience as proof to support his mother's claims, he just can't say much.
Mm-hmm.
He also questioned her epilogue in which she talks about a time when Akon and Aileen came down but did not land, instead revealing themselves via this three-dimensional projection, in which Elizabeth was there with others who witnessed this, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth asked if she could be with them already, and Akon told her, not yet, but in 5 years' time. But based on the details she provided in the book, David assumed that this event would have happened in 1977. Or when I did my own math, it could have happened in 1978, which meant that they would have come for her in 1982 or 1983.
Right.
But they didn't come for her 5 years later because she didn't die until 1994.
Oh, wow. Well, maybe they got their math screwed up.
Maybe. And she ended up dying from breast cancer at the age of 83.
So not a heart issue.
I mean, she had a lot of issues.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people with cancer have a lot of different issues. Sadly, you can get it all.
Yes.
I know this
Your
all
body
too
just
well.
starts breaking down.
Yeah. Aubrey, her husband, actually died in 1981, so after the book came out. Most of David's epilogue does not discredit his mother. He's not doing that. He believed that she believed what she believed.
Okay.
And he always supported her. Although admitting to having his own UFO experiences as a teenager, he's always had trouble with accepting their existence because he is very Christian.
Oh, well, yeah, that kind of skews everything.
Yeah. And that's essentially what his epilogue is. He's translating her words to align with Christian teachings. And
well, then fuck his epilogue.
and saying his piece in the matter, I guess.
He's like, this was actually God's work.
Well, he believes that all that is needed to save humans is already available to us.
Through Jesus.
Through the Bible and whatnot, and that we do not need an alien race to help us see it.
Yeah, he hasn't been to a modern day church because, come on.
Nevertheless, he said that his mother always stuck to her story, even though he also claims that the very end before dying, she accepted Jesus.
Okay.
Maybe she did. Maybe to aid her son's feelings. We don't know. Maybe she connected it all in one way or another. But he said for her entire life, she was wonderful, gentle, caring, loving.
Mm-hmm.
People didn't look at her as a crazy person who, like, she was fully functioning human being.
Correct. Yeah, that's good. And good mom, sounds like.
Yeah. Elizabeth had many, many people who believed her wholeheartedly, but confirming these details with some of the people in her story was very difficult. Many never spoke openly or gave statements that were printed. I mean, this is back then.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing that we had to confirm her story really before her passing. The Zulu people were really difficult to locate. David was too young. I wouldn't trust my daughter
to
think back to what was happening when she was 9 years old.
I don't even trust myself to really understand what was happening at 9.
I literally cannot tell you one memory from being 9 years old. I can't tell you that.
I mean, I could probably tell you a few, but not like really great detail.
I would have to go find a photo to be like, okay, I'm
remember
9
that.
there, Mom. I don't know anything
like I can
specifically
think back,
being 9.
If I think right now, I know I was in 4th grade and I can think back to my 4th grade class thinking of it. So I think I could, but probably not a ton of detail that's going to be accurate at that point.
And at the time David's writing his epilogue, or when this is published, he's 50 years old.
Okay.
It's a jump. People question her 4 months away, because she was gone for 4 months.
Yeah.
Earth time. That's a long time. But David was in boarding school.
Oh.
And other than May, there wasn't really anyone else who would have really noticed her prolonged absence.
Yeah.
She was already in a remote area.
She wasn't working
of
job.
the Jockensburg. She didn't have a job. And it wasn't a regular pregnancy. She wasn't seeing regular doctors.
So nobody knows.
She could have been gone for 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
She really could have. I could go into all of the other UFO people who have an opinion about it, but there's really no point.
Yeah, it's just an opinion.
There's no
Everybody
point
has an opinion.
It's just an opinion.
Yeah.
Personally, I believe in aliens, and it makes sense that there are some very similar to us, like humans, but just way more advanced. Like, I feel like that's out there. Was her story embellished?
Probably.
Yes, I certainly think it was in some cases. But otherwise, she seemed like a completely sane woman. It's a fantastic story.
Yeah.
I think Akon could have learned to caress her feelings a little bit better and carried her less. But I don't know. They're advanced, so
they don't need all that reassurance.
He sure did give it to her. He just had a weird way about it.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel like an undying love for her.
Oh, from him?
From how she described him.
No.
Because this is her words, and I just didn't get that. But he had been around 3,000 plus years. So who are we to say that something's supposed to look a certain way when you're that age?
He's also a scientist.
Yeah, he's serious. He's a serious man.
He's not a romantic. He's not writing poems and drawing portraits of her.
Well, and I think part of the story, the point of it is they had this connection that couldn't be explained.
Okay, yeah.
She was born and he knew it kind of thing. There's something that we can't comprehend there. For us, it seemed like he popped in and out just to kind of leave her abruptly.
To toy with her.
Yeah. And a lot of people are like, oh, what a gross man. He watched her as a kid and knew he was going to have sex with her when she was older.
I said that.
He didn't take her until she was old.
Yeah, at least that.
So he could have taken her at like 18.
When she was hot at 19 and 20.
But no, he took her when she was a grown woman.
Yeah, because 40-year-olds can be hot too. Come on.
Yeah, Kendra.
You're getting there one day. We all are.
Only 2 years away. Don't worry. I'm not that far off. Less than 2 years. But what I think does give her story some weight is the longevity of her story. It lasted forever.
Mm-hmm.
Most UFO stories we hear today, it's an experience.
Like one day.
It's one day.
Yeah.
It's one night. Something happened, right? And most of her experiences are completely unlike other UFO tales,
Correct.
not just in
Yeah.
time. Most UFO experiences involve some sort of memory loss.
Mm-hmm.
For her, none.
None. She has sharp memories.
A lot of UFO stuff happens at night.
True.
Abductions.
Yes.
For most of her experiences, it was in the middle of the day when all this happened.
Right.
And she wasn't abducted. She was a very willing participant in every bit of the way. And others in the area have come forward claiming that, yes, there's UFO activity in the Drakensberg Mountains. But is it Akon? I don't know.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of arguments come from the supposed origin of us on Venus, because based on what we know of Venus, people don't think that that was a possibility.
It
But
wasn't hospitable.
we're talking about
millions and billions of years ago.
Yeah, but another reason is it contradicts evolution as we know it.
Yes.
And that we were essentially placed here and didn't.
I mean, we had to come from somewhere.
Yeah, of course. Why are you arguing it? Who
I
cares?
can't believe in the Big Bang and all of this like complexity that has come from that. Just doesn't make sense to me.
Well,
so
to me, we're not advanced enough to ever know the true origin of anything.
We're like the amoebas in the chain of it all.
Really, we have to have the experiences like Elizabeth for anybody to know the truth of anything.
True.
So how are we to say what she experienced is not true? So I'm just left with one question. Well, I guess it's kind of two questions. Did Akon actually love her? And is Elizabeth on Meton now in her new body?
I hope she is.
I hope so too.
And I hope they're living happily ever after, forever and ever. And she's with Ailing and life is good.
Apparently, before she died, she said that Ailing now had a space woman named Clea and they had a son. So she's a grandma to space babies.
Hopefully they have a whole generation of family now.
I mean, they could. And they're all going to last forever. So maybe we'll meet one of them someday.
Maybe that's where we're all going to end up. We just don't know it because we don't have an Akon coming down here and talking to us.
Maybe it'll be Ailing's son.
Yeah?
No.
That'd be too young.
Yeah, too young. I don't know. They grow fast.
It's true. He could be our age right now.
So Elizabeth actually was in the middle of writing a second book before she died.
Oh, okay.
And it did not come out and will not come out, but it was called The Gravity File. And she was elaborating on parts that people had questions about, like some holes, I guess, in her story. And then she was also providing more details about Akon's electromagnetic propulsion technology.
Okay.
It sucks that that's not going to come out, but
because that could help. Yeah.
I feel like, why not? It's her story, but they won't publish it. So that's her story. Elizabeth Klarer, now residing on Meton, 4.37 light years away, riding white Arabian horses, eating a lot of salad, and surely accompanying Akon and Ailing on their adventures, because there's no way that that lady went through all of that to stay home and be a housewife.
No, absolutely not.
Nope.
Wow. I have never heard this story, which I feel really sheltered that I haven't. Because I feel like I've seen a lot of UFO stuff over the years. I've watched Ancient Aliens and all of that.
But it's because her story's not like other stories.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why.
And they write her off as just a crazy, like, no, it doesn't even sound like that. Like I was about to say, they just write her off as like a romantic.
Yeah. Everyone in her life. Like that was her life. This was her life. Her whole life
was all about this.
Her
ship
whole
and
life.
Akon
So
coming.
she was 7 years old.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, to discredit her story, it feels like...
I mean, it's a wild one.
It's a wild one.
I don't know that I can swallow everything that she said happened. Like, I was sitting there kind of...
there's no
like,
way to
giggling
know.
Because I'm like, oh my God, this sounds like all of the movies and supernatural novels, but maybe this is what sparked some of those ideas.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Especially if you were to go back and read, like, the technology, like all their science talk that they had.
Oh, really?
Because there's pages and pages and pages of going over that. But, yeah, it's an interesting book. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
Whenever I read a book, I'm not like, oh, that was a horrible book. Like, I'm never saying it's the best book in the world. Some people are fucking book snobs, and I'm not that way. Go read the book. I think it was a cool book.
Yeah.
And it was her take. And she writes really well, and she has beautiful words. So, But I think Akon, I don't know.
Was he a extraterrestrial fuckboy?
I don't think so, because
it sounds like he didn't mess around with anyone else.
It sounds like she was his only and will forever be his only.
Yeah. Well, this was a very interesting story, very different. Like you said, it's everything you promised in the beginning. I was just sitting here kind of surprised, I guess, the whole time. Saying okays as I do. But I was listening to the story. I tried to say things other than okay. We realize that we do that sometimes. So
but we're just trying to listen like you guys, and
yeah,
comes out sometimes, and sometimes we can't edit it out because we're talking over each other.
Yeah, exactly. So. And we don't always have meaningful things to add to each other's stories. Sometimes we are just sitting there listening.
Yeah.
And going, wow, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
Okay.
That's wild.
Anyways, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did, and that you will go and check us out on social media. We'll have some pictures from this episode. I'm sure Jessica, I was already looking up some of them when you mentioned the UFO.
I had to tell her to stop looking at photos because she wasn't listening to me.
I know. Yeah, I'm really bad about that. And anyways, we're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. And please visit and leave comments if you would like.
Thank you. And email your lab reports or suggestions to lucidlabpodcast@gmail.com.
And
if your hope is to be on a spaceship with an alien somewhere, it can happen.
You could have
Keep your hopes up.
Intergalactic love story. If you haven't found a guy on the dating apps on Earth, maybe you're just, needing to expand your mind a little bit.
Yep. Reach a higher consciousness and maybe they'll feel the pull from you. I don't know. Maybe that's what it takes.
Your dream man.
Yeah. Although I have a hard time thinking that Travis Walton was of that consciousness.
No, I think he just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I would argue that maybe Betty Hill.
Could have been.
She was very smart.
Yes.
And he was just really tall and had fake teeth. And they're like, what the hell is this? We need to investigate.
Oh, well, we'll wrap this up. We'll say bye.
Goodbye.
And in the meantime, always
stay lucid.
Stay lucid.
Man, yeah. Especially in stories like this.
This one definitely makes me think about a lot.
Yes.
So we'll see you next week. Bye.
Goodbye.